After years of service in the US military, Henry is back in Hong Kong. He returns to Tak Chi Secondary, which he previously attended, to begin his teaching career. The principal admits that he lacks teaching expertise. However, he gets hired after being presented with a letter of reference from a higher authority. The principal tells Henry that the class he would be teaching is the worst in the entire school before he departs. Henry arrives in his class on the morning of his first day of school to find things in complete disarray. Many of the kids are using a portable burner to prepare ramen while others are dozing off, singing, or playing video games. They pretend not to hear Henry as he attempts to grab their attention. He stops trying and walks about the classroom making observations about what they are presently doing. Ramen has too much salt, therefore the students who are cooking are advised to consume less of it. Then Henry approaches Zufa, who is playing the ukulele, and assists him. Similar to this, he cautions a young player about the radiation he may get from spending all day looking at a screen. He introduces himself and writes his name and phone number on the board as the pupils begin to pay attention. His writing is awful, and the pupils laugh. He is then asked to leave the class by a fellow student over the phone, but Henry shrugs it off. The children turn a blind eye to him and carry on with whatever they were doing before he arrived. Henry decides that enough is enough and activates the fire sprinkler in the room using a rubber band and some chalk. The pupils hastily disperse so they wouldn't get soaked. Once he has their whole attention, he formally welcomes them to his class. 5 of the lowest scoring students congregate in the sports equipment room after class to smoke. The group's leader Jack has a crush on an A-grade student in a different class. He is made fun of by the others when they see him fixating on her photo. The gang has a rivalry with the affluent and privileged basketball team players at the school. Later, Jack and the gang watch the basketball team practice while standing close. The team captain falls to the ground as Jack spills a bottle on the playing surface. The principal of the school is upset because the education board intends to take 20% of their yearly funding. The board members come to the school for a tour so they can see how the money is being used. Henry walks into the classroom at the same time the kids put up a bucket of water to play a practical joke on him. He shocks the classmates who had been waiting to tease him. Henry, who is aware that Jack smokes, begs for Jack's pack of cigarettes. Henry then asks Zufa to list the 3 components of a cigarette. He is permitted to miss class that day if he provides the right response to the inquiry. Everyone begins to pound on their desks, begging that they too be allowed to miss class. He gives each of them a cigarette and instructs them to examine it once they quit. Henry is aware that people won't take him seriously if he only explains how it affects their health. Instead, he probes them about the effects of smoking and describes how tar accumulates in their lungs. The pupils grudgingly accept when he asks them to return the smokes after the bell sounds. On that particular day in the cafeteria, the basketball team's captain trips Bruce. They wreck the premises by throwing food and tables at one another. Later, Henry learns that 5 of his classmates have been given temporary suspensions for inciting the altercation. Henry intervenes when he sees Jack battling someone in the corridor. When told to calm down, Jack complains that the school is unfair since the wealthy students are not disciplined. Henry looks through each of the 5 pupils' files that day after school to learn more about them. Zufa is the first man. He is the son of a Pakistani immigrant who endures constant racial prejudice. He is frequently accused of stealing by the police officers in his area. The only thing Zufa ever wanted in life was to be a musician. A girl called Denon is the second student. Since the day she was born, she had been a disappointment to her father, who had always desired a boy. She also shortened her hair to play the part of a guy while playing with vehicles. While treating her little brother like a prince, her father shows no concern for her. Then there are the Bruce and Chris brothers. Their mother left them with a guy, which caused their father to become an alcoholic. Chris toiled diligently in a grocery shop to provide money for the family while Bruce got hooked on video games to avoid reality. Henry is unable to locate any information on Jack's family history. The next scene shows Jack performing his server duties at a restaurant. Jianying shows up at the restaurant with his business colleagues as an MMA bettor. Jack tries to take Jianying's nice lighter but is caught. He examines Jack's ID while Jianying's guys beat him up. He gives him some money and makes an offer to hire him as their food delivery man after learning that he is a student. Henry goes to Zufa's house somewhere else and discovers him fleeing after taking a ticket from his father and his friends. He first assists him, but after learning the reason why he is being pursued, he sides with the father. He then makes his way to the bridge with Zufa to hang around. Henry sings with a band playing in the streets to inspire Zufa to do anything he wants. After being teased at school for numerous years, Zufa follows him moments later and performs her debut song in front of others. Meanwhile, Chris and Bruce's father, who typically arrives home late, ask them to get him a drink from the shop. He shouts at the brothers to leave his home when they continue to refuse. The following day, Henry visits their father to persuade him to check into a recovery facility for the sake of his boys. Meanwhile, Denon's father offers her a bag of cosmetics and tells her to pretend she's a girl for a change. Because he constantly makes Denon feel inadequate, she is enraged with him. she slips out of the house after applying makeup on her younger brother. Henry intervenes just in time to prevent her from taking off in her father's automobile. He informs her that it is against the law to drive without a license and offers an option. They then proceed to a go-kart racing course. Her father is also invited, and Henry forces them to compete. The father and daughter are merciless to one another and finally find themselves off the course. Denon manages to avoid being struck when it suddenly collides with her go-kart. Her father sobs in sorrow at his daughter's passing. After realizing that he truly loves her, Denon hugs him. The next day at school, Bruce and Chris are dispatched with a group to a treatment facility to speak with an alcoholic in recovery. They are taken aback to learn that their father will be the subject of the interview. The pupils inquire as to how he got into drinking. The man responds that although he adored his wife, she left him when he needed her the most. As a result, he began to drink and lost sight of his 2 children. The father apologizes to Bruce and Chris without revealing that they are his sons. The brothers are left in tears at the conclusion. Jack has begun working for Jianying. He makes Jack a generous offer to inject fighters' drinks during the next match. Jack is compelled to accept the offer despite his resistance. Jianying promotes a boxer on the day of the bout but wagers against him. Jack attempts to drug the fighter's drink but gets caught in the act. He gets beaten up and put in a locker before he can accuse Jianying. Henry shows up a little later and asks the combatants if they have seen his pupil. The guys beg Jack to go back home, but Jack cries for assistance from within the locker. When Henry realizes he is being imprisoned, he fights them and easily defeats them. By the time it is through, he has eliminated their finest fighter, who was scheduled to fight in a few minutes. Jack tries to confront Jianying with the facts but is silenced. Henry becomes well known as the man who beat up a professional boxer to save his student after the news is broadcast on television. He becomes more well liked and respected by the kids. They even stand up to welcome him to the class. In a flashback, Henry reveals that he used to play practical jokes with his classmates. Later, he engaged in combat with the same pupil and hurt his hand. He had to take a flight to the United States after being suspended from the bout. From that moment on, the pupils pay attention when Henry teaches in class and put a lot of effort into studying for the impending college entrance exam. Everyone is doing well, except Bruce, who has developed a medication addiction. It comes out that Bruce began taking drugs while Chris started playing video games to escape his family's issues. He does horribly on the mock admission exam as a result of his lack of concentration. But as time passes, Bruce's depression worsens. He eventually leaps from their home's balcony. He enters a coma after being taken to the hospital in a hurry. The news is misrepresented by the media, who attribute Bruce's actions to Henry and the school. Henry is questioned by the school board representatives, who ultimately decide to withdraw his teaching credential. The pupils pursue him as he exits the building after packing up, pleading with him to stay. Although they are devastated by his departure, they are aware that they must succeed on their next exam to make Dad proud. They put in twice the effort in their studies after that to convince the board that Henry is a competent teacher. On the test day, Henry texts Jack and all of his classmates requesting them to gather in the school about an hour before the exam. When the students get together, they learn that Jianying planned to keep them in the building so they wouldn't be able to go to the test room in time. He's doing this to make a point to Henry. Henry shows up at school and learns about Jianying's scheme. To prevent Jianying's followers from hurting the kids, he battles everyone while releasing the pupils. While Henry battles Jianying, they move quickly to the exam room swiftly. Jianying admits that he was the man whom Henry had shot water balloons at while he was younger as they engage in a one-on-one battle. He hasn't handled a piano since the event and accuses Henry of shattering his dream. He attacks Henry again despite his attempts to talk with him. Henry finally receives a pursuit to kill him but chooses not to. He apologizes for what he did when he was younger and then turns to go. The students arrive at the testing location on time and finish the exam. A few weeks pass, and they all succeed with flying colors. Jianying picks up the piano once more, but he still needs to practice a lot to reach his previous level of proficiency. Bruce bounces back swiftly and commits to taking the admission exam the following year. The board agrees to provide them with a 20% bonus money because their pupils performed very well on the admission exam, which makes the principal happier. Henry goes back to the classroom and does the fire sprinkler trick on a new group of children.